on a Midwest college football podcast, joined as always by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Satkoviak. We are on round 3 of our summer, fall preview series. It's getting a little warmer out there. We're continuing to roll through the Big Ten here tonight. We are pleased to be joined by Richie O'Leary to help us break down the Scarlet Knights. He covers Rutgers on the On3 network. Second year in a row, Richie. Thanks for joining us tonight, sir. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. College football recruiting is about to hit that dead period, so I get to take my vacation just like the college football coaches do. So I'm ready to just put it all aside for a month and wait till training camp.
Very nice. That is that July. I think we're Clinton and I are both going on a little vacation in July too, so I'm looking forward to that as
There
well.
you go.
Clinton, hello again. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a good day, a fast day of work. I wasn't overly busy. Had to deal with some Antwan Raymond slander
Whoa.
this past week. So from a Michigan fan, of course, no surprise, right? Sorry, Michigan fans. So we had to beat that one down a little bit, and so excited to talk some Scarlet Knights tonight. Ryan, how are you?
I need to stop waking up early to work out. I'm just tired. I had 2 cancels in the middle of the day, and I just slept at work. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's good. Good times. Well, I forgot to tweet this out. There we go. We are talking Rutgers this evening, and this is a fascinating team for me in 2026 because they took a big step forward offensively last year. There is some skill talent on this team that I think is among the best in the Big Ten. So I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts on this team tonight, Richie. Clinton, if you want to kick us off there with question number 1.
Yeah, 2025 was much of the same for Rutgers in regards to their Big Ten performance. They finished 2-7 in Big Ten play after just 1 year finishing 4-5 in the Big Ten. As the Big Ten continues to get better, Richie, and the schedule remains fairly difficult, where's the fan base's head in regards to Greg Schiano leading this team? And that is to say, if he falters in the Big Ten again this year, could we see a changing of the guard possibly in 2027?
I mean, you talk about Rutgers football, and the first thing that comes to people's mind is Greg Schiano. Like, he's the only one to ever win at Rutgers. He's the only one to ever take them to not the promised land, I would say, but to the top 10, which is insane to say Rutgers and top 10 in the same sentence. But he did do it before. So there is still a lot of faith among the fan base. They have a new AD in Kelly Zinn coming over from LSU, new president in William Tate, who is basically, I don't want to say he's basically a fan because he obviously does a lot on the presidential side and politics side of things, but he is a huge, huge sports nut. And it's the first time Rutgers has had a president like that in quite some time. But I do think if they get 3 or 4 wins, like his seat's going to start to get a little warm. But he is Rutgers football. The donors are behind him. They're finally getting NIL taken care of. A lot of people don't notice, but like Greg Schiano himself, the former AD, Pat Hobbs, wasn't really doing much at all for NIL. It was kind of just like, I'm a former lawyer. It's going to get legal. It's too much. I don't want to touch it. It's going to be a bad thing. Whereas the new AD came in and said, Greg, you don't have to do anything. We're going to take care of it. We have our own people now. Greg was going on a Thursday night up to New York City for dinners to meet with donors and other people that are just throwing money towards the program just to try to raise any little bit of NIL that they could. And even with that little bit of NIL, they were still able to keep a lot of guys, which is crazy. Like Kyle Monungai, who would have thought he would have stayed at Rutgers? And I could tell you for a fact they had an SEC program go after him, offer him a couple 100,000 more than Rutgers, and he's like, no, I'm going to stay. You guys have been great to me. You took a chance on me out of high school. I'm going to stay with you guys. Max Melton, Holland Pierce, all the notable guys that are now in the NFL, they took significant pay cuts to stay at Rutgers. And now the money's starting to come in a little bit. It's not like they're going from 18 to like number 10 in the Big Ten in NIL, but it's made a hell of a difference with this new regime in charge of the athletic department. So to answer your question, long story short, if he falters, it depends what your definition of falter is. I think 3 or 4 wins, his seat starts to get warm, but he's going to be here for the long haul. He'll be one of those coaches that you're talking about like 10, 15 years from now, and I'm like, wow, he's still at Rutgers.
I feel like everyone that we have talked to just about Rutgers within Rutgers, I think we've had 3 or 4 different people who've either covered Rutgers or been affiliated with Rutgers. We get that same sentence every single time is when you think of Rutgers football, you think of Greg Schiano, and it's just so widespread to think about. And I think, you hear the phrase alignment so often in college sports, right? And I think it's more important now than ever having an administration that is behind the mission of the football program. And things kind of go off the rails, right, when the donor money starts drying up. So I think if you're a Rutgers fan, that's good to hear that, hey, the donors are behind this guy. They're starting to pick that up because that's how you stay competitive now. You can't sit on the sidelines with NIL in 2026.
Yeah, a big thing with Greg is when he signed his contract with Rutgers, there's like a big stipulations. Like they need an indoor practice facility. They're one of the only teams in the country that doesn't have a true indoor practice facility because the one they have now is literally a bubble that pops every winter because there's too much snow on top of it.
Ooh.
So it's like, I shouldn't say pops, it just deflates. And it's very embarrassing looking. Like, I don't even know a single team in the country other than Rutgers that has a bubble. Like, it's just so outdated. So that was part of his contract. And when NIL hit, he was just like, halt. Like, we're not doing this anymore. Screw it. Put all the money, right? Whoever put donor money in, talk to them because we've got to figure it out. We're going to shift that money straight towards NIL now. And that's how they've been able to keep some guys. But like I said, Kelly's in and her department are now able to take over the whole thing. And they're running a great show right now compared to what it used to be. It was literally nothing. So the floor was pretty barren. But now it's like, okay, now they feel confident that some years they'll be like top 10 in NIL. I shouldn't say top 10. They'll be 10 in NIL. Some years they'll be 14. Some years they'll be 12. Some years they'll be 13. So it's just going to go back and forth each year, depending on how many donors they can get, basically.
I mean, it's nice to take a little bit off of that plate, too. You know, you're already wearing so many hats as a head coach. Take at least a little bit of the fundraising hat off of him. But you want to talk about two guys who I'm sure were not cheap to retain. They two of the better players in the Big Ten, regardless of position, but certainly at their own position groups. Clinton and I are both super high on Antwan Raymond. We both think he's the best back in the Big Ten. And outside of Jeremiah Smith, I think you can make an argument that KJ Duff is the best wide receiver in the Big Ten. Both had terrific seasons last year. But there's a little bit of change on the offense around them, right? Athan Kaliakmanis is off to the next level. Ian Strong's off to Cal, so a little bit. And DT Sheffield, I think he's off to the NFL now. So
Yeah.
A lot of what did make this offense run so well is gone from last year. But getting those two key guys back certainly helps. How do you see this offense kind of running through those two? And what areas of their games do you expect to see the most growth now that they're going to be quite literally the two featured pieces of his offense?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Antwan Raymond praise because I just don't think he gets it enough, especially because Rutgers running backs have been pretty damn good over the past couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you go from Pacheco, 7th-round pick, Kyle Monungai, 7th-round pick. I'd be shocked if Antwan Raymond stays past this season, even with the new 5-for-5 rule. He'll technically have 2 more years left, or I should say 3 technically. But I'd be shocked if he stays past this. I mean, he put up 1,200 yards. I was telling people all last offseason about him, and they're like, yeah, but he's got to fill Kyle Monungai's shoes. I'm like, he might be better than Kyle Monungai. Like, he is a little bit of a different back. There's still kind of that bowling ball type, but bulkier guy. I think he'll be fine. I don't really think there's going to be much change in his game. Maybe a little bit more involvement in the pass game. They did add a 3rd down back pass catcher in Clay Tenevin from Louisiana Tech, which they kind of had last year with CJ Campbell, and they kind of thought they could kind of spell Antwan and just not run him into the ground, basically. But CJ Campbell gets hurt game 1, out for the season, and it's like, okay, well, there goes that. Antwan, it's your show again. So, yeah, I expect a really big season out of him, and then KJ Duff has just gotten bulkier and stronger and bigger, and he has the hands. He has hands like glue, basically. You saw some of those phenomenal catches towards the end of the season. I think it was against Penn State, that crazy one-handed grab that was like maybe an inch off the ground, and it's just like, I don't know how he does these things. But I was at a football camp recently at Rutgers, 7-on-7 camp. So it's like the top schools in the Northeast all get together, compete for a tournament at Rutgers, and I've just seen KJ from last year to this year. Like, if you saw KJ walking around last year, it was like, yeah, he's pretty tall. He looks like a good player. This year, I've never seen so many like high school recruits, high school coaches just, oh my God, that's KJ Duff. We got to go take a picture with him. That guy, he's going to be a first rounder. I know it. I know it. So you can kind of just see how much of he's kind of grown into a star at Rutgers, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about, losing his running mate, Ian Strong, and I mean, his best game last season was when Strong didn't play in that Purdue game. And
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it's Purdue, but still, you go for 240 against anyone in the Big Ten. That's a hell of a game. So I'm really excited to watch him this year and see what kind of steps he takes. I mean, he's got, you mentioned the hands, but the size, the strength, the speed, the jump ball contested ability, just to see how he elevates his game to the next level. And kind of gets his name in that conversation for wide receiver number 2 in the 2027 draft.
Yeah, he's going to have a heck of a year. It does kind of stink a little bit from their perspective that they did lose Ian Strong. The feeling was, with just going off Ian real quick, he left for the portal, and there was some talk that he might come back. He didn't get the offers he wanted, but then got an offer from Cal. He's going to play for a pretty damn good quarterback at Cal. Mm-hmm. So it does make sense. His big thing was he wanted to increase his draft stock. He was a little nervous with Rutgers getting a new quarterback, a couple new offensive linemen. He didn't really know how the offense was going to run going forward. I still think it's going to be pretty good. But, that was a big factor there. But they have a lot of weapons in that wide receiver room. Dave Brock has developed name after name at Rutgers. Not just Rutgers, at Kansas State, at North Carolina, like Hakeem Nicks he developed. Went to the NFL and also coached Julio Jones, who's pretty good. So, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty confident they'll be fine in that wide receiver room, not just KJ Duff, but with everyone else.
Greg McElroy is another one that, in listening to his show, when he did his top 10 running back show, he had Antwan Raymond in his top 10. So he's at least riding with the hype. And Ryan and I did the same thing back to back here. Like, we pounded for Monungai, and then now we're pounding for Raymond and trying to get the people who follow us to listen and understand how good of a back he is. And I feel like a lot of it, unfortunately, Rutgers is not the top of the Big Ten. When you look at Ohio State and Michigan, Penn State even, you got your Oregons and your Indianas now. Like, if Antwan Raymond is the lead running back for one of those guys, everybody in the country knows this guy. Mm-hmm. And I think, unfortunately, he gets knocked because of that, and he shouldn't, because just because you're not on the national powerhouse doesn't mean you're not an elite player. And so those of you listening, please go look up Antwan Raymond. Follow him this year. He's a fantastic back. And I think a lot more people, you could speak on this, I feel like, are familiar with KJ Duff than they are Antwan Raymond. Ryan mentioned, question 3 here, Kaliakmanis has gone to the NFL. Now we turn the page to the next guy up. And it seems what we have read, it's Dylan Lonergan and AJ Surace, if I pronounce his last name correctly, are the next 2 up. Does this hold true in what you've seen and heard? And is there a lean or a tell one of these quarterbacks is going to be the lead guy, or is there going to be a quarterback battle in Piscataway all the way through camp?
Yeah, it's been going on all spring mostly. So going into camp, I was very high on AJ Surace. I think he's the guy. I thought this is it. Year 3 for him. Year 1 he got banged up, but it didn't really matter because he had Athan. Year 2 he comes in, learns under Athan, and then now this will be year 3. Kirk Shiraka, the offensive coordinator, his biggest thing when teaching quarterbacks, he always says year 3 is when you master my playbook. So obviously you have to keep the quarterbacks for 3 years, and that's just super unlikely in today's day and age, but different story. But if you notice, Athan Kaliakmanis had 1 year at Minnesota with Kirk, had 2 years at Rutgers with Kirk. That 3rd year, he just took off and turned into a damn good quarterback. So the thinking would be is that AJ Surace has mastered the playbook. He'll be able to do that. Now you bring in Dylan Lonergan, who's a very interesting prospect because he has some really high highs at Boston College and then some really low lows at Boston College. Mm-hmm. Also, not that really good of a team last year either. I think they had 2 wins, 3 wins, whatever it was.
They were not good.
No, but he did, I think, if I recall correctly, he did upset Michigan State last year at Boston College. So that's a pretty solid win. He has a lot of talent, and you could tell the talent's there. I just think he takes too many risks for my preference, at least. So that's why I tend to lean, personally, AJ Surace is going to win this. But it could go either way. It is very close. I know after talking to some people, like, we're not allowed to watch practice, technically. So, like, just talking to some people, it sounds like Dylan was, like, came in and they're, like, confident he could be the guy. And now it sounds like AJ pushed back. And now it's a legitimate, like, race. So we're going to have to wait and see throughout camp. But Greg's also been very coy with his quarterback battles in the past. I think it was Boston College, ironically, a couple years ago when they opened the season at Boston College. I think it was Gavin Wimsatt and Evan Simon, and Gavin Wimsatt and Noah Vedral. And he just refused to tell everyone that Noah Vedral's hurt. Like, no one knows, but it's still an ongoing quarterback battle. And then in the post game, Jeff Halfley's like, they're like, hey, did you know, like, that Gavin was going to be the quarterback? He's like, dude, we knew, like, months ago. Like, it's just very odd. Like, all these coaches talk to each other. Like, it's bound to leak out. So I tend to think one might be slightly in front of the other, but it's going to be a true battle in training camp.
What do you think the ceiling of this offense is in 2026? Because the running backs there, you got the number one receiver. And I think Antwan Raymond, too. Like, he's just a very rare type of running back in college football these days. Like, the true bell cow guy. Like, you don't see a ton of those guys anymore. But this was a passing attack last year that was pretty good, all things considered. I mean, 26th nationally in yards per game. With regardless of who ends up being the quarterback, what do you think that they can bring to this passing offense, and what do you think that ceiling can be for it?
I think it's going to be very similar to last year. And that's no knock on Athan. I love Athan. I think he's a really good quarterback. When you give him protection, he's able to drop a dime basically to anyone, as long as they're open, of course. But I do think it's going to be similar in terms of it's still going to be a run-heavy offense technically, but there's so many pass attempts that you're going to be able to push the ball up the field more than Rutgers has done so in the past. I mean, last year was the first year in a long time where they had, I think since 2009, when they had a 3,000-yard passer, 1,000-yard rusher, 1,000-yard receiver. I could see something similar. I don't think they're going to get the 3,000 yards, whoever that quarterback is, but I think the rushing yards will go up also. So I do think it's still going to be a very potent offense. It's going to be very hard to stop. If I'm being honest, I think it's very basic, but it works. So, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, flipping to the other side of the ball, something that was not as good last year was the defense. And kind of weird to see with Rutgers because Greg Schiano is a guy who's long been known for his defensive acumen. But since having a pretty strong 2023 season, they've been bottom half nationally. The last two seasons, points per game, and yards per play allowed, they were last in the country by almost half a yard per play last season. They bring in Travis Johnson from South Dakota to try and turn this unit around. What are you expecting scheme-wise this defense to look like, and how can just having him in there help improve this unit in 2026?
Yeah, just last year was such a weird offseason, a weird year for, like you said, the Rutgers defense. Greg's very well known for it. He hires Rob Smith, his defensive coordinator, after 45 days, I think it was. So it's clear he wasn't the number one choice. It's clear he wasn't two. You could probably go down to number 10 or 11. Because this is a guy he fired 3 or 4 years ago. So also has been fired at multiple stops. So even when they hired him, we're just like, okay, let go at Rutgers once, fired at Minnesota, fired at Arkansas, fired at Rutgers. But most of the time it was like, all right, he's getting fired after year 2, so maybe it will work for a year. Just screw it, try it. About halfway through the season, I think it was Oregon puts up like 56 on Rutgers, and Greg's like, nope, we're done here. I'm calling it now. And then all of a sudden, the defense starts showing flashes. Last year with Rob Smith, you see guys totally out of position. You see guys diagnosing the play and thinking it's a run play, and the safety's inching up to like the line of scrimmage, and then there's just 2 guys downfield wide open. So Greg takes over. They start playing better. They win that Purdue game. They put up an okay fight against Illinois, and I believe they won the Maryland, and they probably should have. It's weird to say this. They should have won the Penn State game. But the one snap fumble under Athan's leg, and there's a call in the end zone, a DPI, like stupid call, and it would have been incomplete. Just dumb stuff. So technically, I feel like they could have won that. They didn't, obviously, and that's why you play the game. But Travis Johansson comes in from South Dakota, and even before that, we were getting really nervous because we were approaching day 60 of no defensive coordinator, and we're like, oh my God, it's happening again. This is crazy. No. So they get Travis Johansson. He's a former head coach. He's proven himself at South Dakota as a DC before that. They were pretty good at South Dakota. They made the FCS playoffs. They had a lot of good weapons for the FCS. My main concern is just the fact that he's going from the FCS to the Big Ten. It's a totally different world. Now, they did bring in an entirely new defensive staff, so I don't want to put all the blame on Rob Smith last year because some of the assistant coaches were definitely also to blame. They had the worst safety play in the country. The yards per game or yards per attempt, I think it was, on defense was the worst in the Big Ten this century. That's 25 years of bad football, and this is the worst. And I was like, yeah, I watched every game. I could tell you it was the worst. But so they brought in Johansson. He's brought in a couple of his guys. They brought in the one guy that's not one of his guys is Dennis Doughton-Carter, who was at Minnesota last year as the D-line coach. Minnesota had a pretty decent defensive line. And he's kind of proven he's a good recruiter, too, so far. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see. I mean, the thinking is that Johansson's theory or Johansson's philosophy is that to make it as simple as possible for these guys and then build it from there, build out the branches, build out the tree. So I do think while they still probably lack in the talent department, these guys are going to be in the right spots at the right time, and it's going to be up to them to make the plays. Are they going to make every play? No, but if they're in the right spot, you have to have a better feeling than worst in the Big Ten this century.
Yeah. Oof.
You already mentioned talent and then edge rush. Well, they went after some productive G5 edge rushers in Eric O'Neal and Bradley Weaver last year to try and attempt to manufacture some pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
It resulted in those two combining for only 5 sacks on the season. The rest of the team contributed 6 more. And I believe that's after pretty lackluster 2024 season in pressure and sacks as well. It seems that they've went that strategy again with additions of Malachi Davis from Toledo, Jadam Burnett from Tulsa. They together is 5.5 and 6.5 sacks. Do we have faith that this strategy is going to play out better in 2026? And then what other names are you looking at to contribute with this pass rush this year?
Yeah, I think those two are pretty interesting prospects. Jason Candle, who's at UConn now, I love as a coach. He tried, obviously, bringing Malachi Davis with him, but UConn, Big Ten, I mean, let's be honest here. But yeah, so I do think Malachi Davis is a solid prospect. He'll probably be their best edge rusher this upcoming season. Now, that's not saying much for the rest of the room because you just brought in a guy that had, 5 sacks at Toledo, and now he's your best edge rusher in the Big Ten. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I think the biggest issue with that D-line last year was the interior. Kashawn Griffin and Zaire Angoy are both back, but they were just getting shoved around. They were getting pushed 5-10 yards up the field sometimes, and it's either a wide open hole for the running backs or there's just no pressure whatsoever on the quarterback. And you can't just depend on one edge guy to go against 5 offensive linemen and just say, you know what, maybe he'll do it this time. Last season was weird too because Bradley Weaver wasn't really able to practice a bunch, so he was kind of just going out there on game day, and it's like, I know you're a little banged up, but just go for it. You're the best we have. Screw it. Let's just see what happens. So it was such a weird. And Eric O'Neal, who I actually was a big fan of, I thought he'd be more productive. But when you're the only guy out there, it's very hard to produce any type of pass rush. But I think this year is going to be interesting because they bring back Doug Blue Eli, who's a massive space heater. He was supposed to play last season. He was supposed to start last season at the nose tackle and just ends up getting hurt in training camp. I think he tore his ACL on a stupid play. It was just something really dumb. Like the play was already dead and he gets ran into, and it's like, there goes our best defensive tackle. So he'll be back this year. They brought in Rondo Porter, who's really intriguing from App State on the defensive tackles too. He's a little bit on the smaller side, but his hand fighting is just amazing. Like I was watching his tape when they went after him at first and they hosted him on a visit, and I'm like, damn, this kid's no knock against Rutgers. It's just like, should have more interest, right? Like this is crazy. But I do think between those two, they have some young up-and-comers at the edge spot in Whitey Collier, a former 4-star who enrolled a year early last year, is just packing on the weight. Robbie Johnson, another 4-star they got last year. So I think it will be better, but Rutgers hasn't had a guy average, or no, I'm sorry, not average. They haven't had an edge rusher get 5.5 or more sacks in about 7 seasons or something like that. So it's really a mixed bag. So we'll have to wait and see. But the idea is the new defensive line coaches between Dennis Staunton-Carter, Luke Carazola, and then Joe Woodley, who was the head coach of Drake last year, are going to be able to at least create more pressure. Maybe not more sacks, but more pressure at least.
Have you gotten a sense of what kind of the portal strategy is in terms of the defense? Because it's like programs like, your Rutgers, your Purdue's, where they're kind of the middle pack Big Ten teams, but you're still having to compete against the best teams in the nation in conference play. You can't have that same portal strategy where it's like, well, we know we're going to go out and get this guy. He's ranked number 3 in the transfer portal. It seems like you're kind of stuck in between getting a guy who maybe started out at a Georgia, Alabama, Missouri, whatever program like that, and maybe wants more playing time versus the guy who is coming up from the FCS or the G6 level who's been a productive player there, and measuring, measurables, production, trying to extrapolate what that's going to look like for those lower level guys going into the Big Ten, which, some programs have figured that science out, and, it's no exact science to it, right? But for me, it feels like when that's kind of the guy that you're getting, right? You're having to rely on all these guys coming up from the G6 level and hoping they all hit. That just is a tough strategy.
Mm-hmm.
How has Rutgers kind of balanced that? Is it more let's go for that production at the lower levels versus let's take a stab on a guy who might be coming down from, an Ohio State or a Michigan or a Penn State type program who wants to come and try to get more playing time and establish themselves?
Yeah, their theory with recruiting is go after the high school kids, and maybe you'll be able to develop them and then turn and keep them for a cheaper rate, which has worked out pretty well. Like I said before, Kyle Monangai at a cheaper rate, Max Melton, Holland Pierce. Who am I missing? I'm missing someone else, but not the point. Or KJ Duff, duh. Yeah, so I mean, you're able to keep these guys at a cheaper rate. Don't get me wrong, KJ Duff, not cheap whatsoever, but cheaper than the other offers he had. So that's their theory in terms of high school recruiting, and then portal will kind of just fill in the gaps here and there. Like he doesn't want to be too dependent on the portal, but understands that you have to utilize it. And their theory is it's almost Moneyball basically, because they don't have the money to compete with the LSUs, the Michigans, et cetera. They don't have the money to compete with even like that second half of NIL. So it's more about Moneyball and seeing like, okay, this guy's really productive. He has a lot of traits that we really love, and maybe if we could just mold him a little bit more in his single season here, we can turn him into a really good player, a potential draft pick even, and go from there. And that's kind of what they did this cycle. That's kind of what they've been doing every cycle under Greg so far. Like you'll see, where am I going? Their corner from South Dakota who I think is actually really productive, led all FCS in interceptions. He's going to cost a lot cheaper than the corner from Purdue who just averaged 6 or 7 interceptions last year. Now, they do it's a mixed bag, too, because then you have Kevin Humes, who was a starter at Maryland to start the season at corner, got benched, and still had a rotational role. They brought him in at corner. But for the most part, it's all like not under the radar, like G5 FCS. Like they got a Drake linebacker, of course, the connection there. Louisiana Tech running back, a Rice linebacker, App State, like I mentioned before. So their theory is basically go after the lower level guys that are productive, and then you almost don't have to pay them as much too, which is nice. And when you don't have the money, you kind of out of options.
Yeah, be smart about it. To finish up our conversation tonight, Richie, we touched on this a little bit at the top, but after 2 straight seasons of bowl eligibility, the Knights fell short in 2025. 2025. I thought it said 2015 for a second. We're trying to throw back the clock here. Just what are reasonable expectations for this team in 2026? And we kind of already touched on pressure with Greg Schiano, so we don't have to touch on that again. But what would you view as a successful season for Rutgers this season?
It's tough. I don't think fans want to hear this, but I would say 5 to 6 wins is probably a successful season for Rutgers. I know it's weird to say that after they just had 5 last year, and you want more. And the schedule's weird, too. So Rutgers, under Greg Schiano's 2.0 era, as we call it, hasn't lost an out-of-conference game. I kind of expect that trend to keep going because it's UMass, Boston College, Howard. So, I mean, 2 of those you can put me out there and we're going to win. So you could argue 3 maybe. It depends on what this Boston College team looks like. No one really knows. Like this is no offense to these guys because I do like some of the guys at UMass because former Rutgers coach there and Joe Harris-Simiak, but the worst FBS program. Boston College, maybe the worst Power 4 program. Howard it's Howard. Like there's no way that they're going to put up even a competitive fight. It's after that where it gets really interesting because the Big Ten schedule has some not top dogs, but pretty close to the top guys, and then some lower level ones. So like Indiana, USC, Michigan, you could probably mark them all as losses already. After that, it's Maryland, Northwestern, Wisconsin, Nebraska. You could probably mark Penn State as lost too. And then Michigan State. So you have to find a way to get 3 wins out of those. I'm not high on Michigan State, so I think that's 4 right there. Then you got to find 5 and 6. Maryland's hit or miss every year. Sometimes Maryland's beats Rutgers. Sometimes Rutgers beats Maryland for 2 years. Like it just goes back and forth. As weird as it sounds, it's a rivalry technically, according to the Big Ten sponsored by Venmo. So that stupid thing. And then who knows what Northwestern, Wisconsin, and Nebraska are going to be. Nebraska, new quarterback. Wisconsin, Luke Fickell might not even be there in November for all we know. And then Northwestern, I just don't know how to gauge that team at all whatsoever. I think David Braun's a good coach. Chip Kelly's an interesting hire. It could be really good, could be really bad. So they just have to somehow try to sneak out 3 more wins past the out-of-conference. And I think 5 to 6 is going to – as long as you show progress and you're not getting blown out. Like, you're not playing Oregon this year, so you shouldn't get blown out as bad as you did last year. You're not playing Ohio State. You're not playing Indiana. Oh no, you are playing Indiana. Never mind. That might be the one blowout. Yeah, that's homecoming too, by the way. Crazy.
Oof. Oh.
Yeah, not really a choice. There's one game in October that's home, and it's like, what do you do? So, but yeah, I mean, it's there's not the top gauntlet that you're used to in the Big Ten East that it used to be in those divisions. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But I think as long as they show progress, if you could sneak out 6 wins, that's huge. You're going right back to the Bronx. I can guarantee that one right now. Because the Pinstripe Bowl and Rutgers have a love-hate relationship that just goes on for years and years. But I would say I think 6 wins would be pretty successful. I think if it's 5 and you're competitive in some of those games that I just told you are probably losses, that's a successful season. It's year 1 under a new DC, entirely new defensive staff. I know it's not the year you want when you have a top running back and top wide receiver, but you have a new quarterback, you have a new offensive line coach, you have 2 new offensive linemen, a new tight end, another new wide receiver. Like, it's going to take time for it all to gel together. So I think there's a shot at 6 wins. I don't think they go past that, though, personally.
Listen, you write that USC game off, but if there's anything we've learned about Lincoln Riley, he loves going to the East Coast and losing to a team that he should beat.
I can't do it. I can't do it to myself. Like, it's tough. It's still USC at the end of the day, and there's a giant talent gap, as you could tell, just based on star rankings alone. So it's going to be their game 3 too. Like, they're going to try to set a precedent, and you know what's going to happen? They're going to beat Rutgers by like 20, and they're like, "Yeah, I told you we're this good," and then they're going to go lose to someone else.
Oh, see, they got their disgusting non-conference slate of San Jose State, Fresno State, and Louisiana to lead into that game, and then they follow up the following 3 weeks, hosting Oregon, Washington, and traveling to Penn State. So everyone's going to be riding high on the USC train for them to lose 3 straight games after that.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, Richie, 2 more quick things for me and get you out of here. 1, my damn Bobcats almost pulled it off last year against Rutgers. Told you guys they'd be close. 34-31. Should have had it. And number 2, since you told us you're interested in the NBA draft, and it is NBA draft night, who is your team? Have they picked already, or who do you want your team to pick?
I haven't looked yet. I have a bunch of people texting me right now, but I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan, unfortunately. Okay. I'm a loyalist. I grew up rooting for New Jersey, being in New Jersey, the Nets, and I follow them to Brooklyn. I think the past 2 months I've been in like a cave, just trying to ignore all the Knicks stuff.
Yeah.
And every one of my friends is a Knicks fan, and I'm like,
oh no,
God damn, like this is the worst thing that could happen to me. But then I think for a second, and I'm like, you know what? What's the worst thing that happened to Michigan was Ohio State winning the title. And what did they do? They won the title. So who knows? Maybe, or vice versa. I think I got it wrong. Whatever. Yeah, vice versa. You know what I mean? But I'm like, yeah, maybe, you know what? Maybe they could do something in the future. Not next year for sure, but with the new tanking rules, maybe you just don't stink, but you stink enough that you're still getting a good pick. So, I don't think they've picked yet, technically. I think it started at 8:30, I forget. But I'm hoping for Mikael Brown. I know he had a back injury, and I'm a little concerned with that. I'm hoping we trade back into first and go after a guy like Yaxel Lendenborg. That's me just being biased towards New Jersey because he's a Jersey boy.
That's the guy the Cavs need.
You're a Cavs fan. Oof.
I am a Cavs fan.
Yeah, that was a rough
Better
series.
days. Listen, I'm lightly follow the NBA now. The past 2 years we've put YouTube TV on pause because my oldest son plays baseball. We're so busy outside doing stuff. So as soon as March Madness is done and the draft's over, it's paused. But
fair enough.
I root for the Cavs. Much bigger, obviously, grew up a LeBron fan. So when LeBron went west, it's just I can't stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning watching the Lakers, and I hate the Lakers. Yeah. I still enjoy LeBron, but I absolutely despise the Lakers. I don't like big market teams. I'm one of those weirdos. I'm Cavs, Guardians, but then I'm a Bengals fan in the NFL. So
okay, I'm actually going out to a Cincinnati Bengals game later this year for a bachelor party. So I might have to get some recommendations from you.
Well, my hope for you is that Joe Burrow is healthy for you to watch that game because Lord knows he's a Bengals fan. It's every other season. This is an even year. He does not get hurt in the even years, so he should be good. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see. I actually have a Bengals jersey, ironically. I have a Brian Leonard Bengals jersey.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'm dating myself here, but it's the Rutgers reference, you know, so I gotta throw them out there.
Well, Richie, before we let you get out of here today, let everyone listening know where they can find your work and what you have in the pipeline prior to vacation and after vacation.
Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter/X, whatever the hell you want to call it now these days, at On3 Richie or at Rutgers On3. Also at thenighreport.com, we have just about anything and everything Rutgers. We're currently covering the MLB Draft Combine because
Nice.
Peyton Bonds, nephew of Barry Bonds, is more than likely a first or second round pick. Played for Rutgers for the past couple years, so he's doing pretty well. Other than that, we're just kind of off season, a lot of recruiting talk. So if you're into that stuff, check us out over there. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Football season's around the corner, and I'm very excited. I think they start in like a month and a couple weeks. So just excited to see who this quarterback is, and it's just driving me nuts that we don't know.
Yeah, well, it's almost the best time of the year. He's Richie O'Leary from the Night Report, Rutgers On3. Sir, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be back with you guys Thursday night this week. We are talking Maryland with Jeff Herman from InsideMDSports.com. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you.